Hey guys, it's your girl Neffy, aka Neffernitty. Thank you for joining me once again. On today's segment of Christian Black Woke, we will be discussing unity in the Black community. Can and should Christians join together with non-Christians to overcome oppression? You'll want to stay tuned. Okay, so it's pretty much common sense that there's strength in numbers. Even the motto on the Haitian flag, loosely translated, is strength in unity, right? So it's obviously better for oppressed people to come together rather than for them to be broken into different segments, right? You know, a lot of us have experienced in our lives one form of another of injustice or racism, especially as it relates to being Black. So the question today, again, is whether Christians should unite with non-Christians who are also Black, though, for the advancement of Black people. But what is it that we are trying to overcome? What oppression or injustice is there? So if you grew up in the hood, I think pretty much most of us have an idea of what it feels like to go through some sort of discrimination. I think most people in those circumstances just are very keenly aware of injustice and racism and oppression. But not everybody grew up in the hood. So there is just a laundry list of things that ought to be corrected. For example, injustices in the penal system, the fact that Black people tend to get disproportionately charged or disproportionately sentenced for the same crimes as their non-Black counterparts. There is inequity in the educational system. Separate but equal is no longer the law on paper, but in action, it definitely seems as though that idea, that sentiment is still being carried out. You can go to two different schools in the same city and see the disparities between the two with regards to the books that they're using, the materials that they have, the education, the technology, So that still exists. Then there is just a host of other different things. We've seen in the past that unity does in fact work. Unity does move people forward. I'll take Black Wall Street, for example, and the strides that they gained in just trading amongst themselves and establishing different professional businesses and trade shops and vocational businesses. And they were thriving there. Then there's the Black Panther Party, which a lot of people have an aversion to. But if you really look at what they were doing, they were trying to advance the Black race by sticking together and it's providing for Black people's needs themselves. So when they saw that the children couldn't focus in school, because they were hungry, they created a free breakfast program. A lot of schools are now doing the same thing. The question is, seeing and knowing that unity works and seeing and knowing that there are issues that need to be addressed, should Christians unify with non-Christians? Could it be people of different faith systems or people who have no faiths at all? Can it be accomplished? And if it can, should it be? So one of my main questions is, what would it look like? Like, would people be asking me to leave Jesus at home? Because I can tell you right now, I ain't doing that. Look at the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King. You didn't have to be a Christian to join with him, but you definitely knew that his movement was based on his understanding of the gospel. You definitely knew that he was about that nonviolence. You definitely knew that he was a preacher and he was interweaving Christ and God throughout his sermons and his messages. And it was definitely a faith-based movement for social justice. So, and even then he caught a lot of flack from different people, but the point still is, you know, he didn't leave his faith at home. So are we required to do that? How would it practically work if we're seeking to advance people? Let's just say, for example, I go out with a Muslim and I hand out food to them. I'm just trying to make it a very basic example, but I hand out food to the homeless alongside a Muslim brother or sister, and then the recipient has questions about issues of faith. What do I do? Do I say, hey, sister, you can answer that? Or am I supposed to offer my perspective? Or do I tell them, that's not what we're here for. We're just here to help you out with a good meal. Like how does it practically work? Do we really need unity though, outside of the church? Like, is it something that the church itself can't handle? I mean, and what are the goals going to be? Let's just say that we do unify, right? What are the goals going to be? How can we have a building relationship with people who are outside of the faith. And I'm not doing this video to say that we can't. I'm just discussing the practicality of it and whether it is feasible, right? What would the goals be if I were to unify with somebody who wasn't a Christian? As Christians, are we supposed to solely seek for the physical development, the temporal development of the race? Not saying that we shouldn't at all, but should it be so important as to secularize it and divorce it from Christ? You know, should we not also, in conjunction with seeking the advancement of people or helping people physically, should we not also be trying to help them spiritually? I always think of Jesus as our example. Christ went around healing people of their infirmities, right? Whatever they were sick with, he healed them, and he gave them forgiveness for sins. He taught them about the kingdom. He taught them about righteousness. He taught them to rely on God for strength. He didn't just hand out the gospel, and he also didn't just hand out free meals, even though he did hand out some free meals a couple of times. The point here is how? Like, how do we accomplish this? How do we separate the two? I'm not saying that people don't do it, but is it something that's biblical? A good film that I like to watch comes to mind, Time Changer. And the underlying theme of this film is basically trying to give people a moral code to live by, which is divorced from Christ. So basically telling them the difference between good and bad things to do, but not using Jesus as the authority that tells them that these things are good and bad and what that can result in. And it's a really cool film. I think you should check it out. But should we separate the two? Should we separate helping people physically from helping them spiritually? And can we maintain our Christian fidelity and identity if we do that? Keep in mind that the Bible says that we should have no fellowship with darkness. The Bible also says, can two walk together unless they are agreed? And some of these people literally hate Jesus. Like, there's no question that there's some darkness in there because they literally have a deep-seated hatred for Christ. They don't want to hear nothing about him. And we'll get to that a little bit more later. But something else that needs to be discussed is the fact that even outside of Christianity, like Christianity and religion itself is not the only thing that separates people. People always say religion causes division. I personally agree with that. Religion does cause division. Well, I don't think it causes division so much as it highlights division that already exists between good and evil. So I'm not causing it by speaking on it. I'm just bringing your awareness to it. And it feels like I'm causing it because you may have overlooked it before. But also Christ said that he didn't come to bring peace, but a sword. He's dividing, again, that light from darkness. So, but there are people who either are irreligious, or anti-religious, a-religious. They don't have a religion, but they still have issues. I mean, look at Umar and whoever that guy he was arguing with in the conscious community was going back and forth on videos, arguing with each other. Let's say we do unify. Who are we going to follow? Are we going to follow your plan or this person's plan? Because obviously y'all said we can't follow Jesus' plan because y'all ain't down with Jesus and y'all want nothing to do with the Bible. So if we're uniting, right, who do we follow? Look at W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington and their completely polarized ideas about what was best for Black people. And these are men who held themselves out as the leaders of the race. And so I think that issue is highlighted in that example. And it's something that if we're thinking about this in practical terms, we ought to consider. Like, really, okay, let's say we set Jesus to the side, which I would never do. But let's just say we set Jesus to the side. Who gonna lead us? Who are we going to follow? Whose ideas are best for the Black community? What about the LGBTQ plus movement? Now that is something that is a very real part of social justice in terms of how people feel about it, as Christians, do we promote it? Do we redefine the family structure in an effort to promote unity and fairness? I definitely believe everybody deserves to be treated equally and fairly, but does that mean I condone their lifestyle as a Christian? No. So how do we draw these lines if we're seeking unity? And then again, I told you we'd come back to this. Sometimes people really, truly don't want nothing to do with me. And I'm just speaking from my own experience because I'm a Christian. I've been called a coon strictly because people know that I'm a Christian, strictly because they believe that Christianity is the white man's religion and it was forced on their ancestors and that we are being oppressed by Christianity in some way, shape, or form to this day. And so if I align myself with that being, then I must be supportive of white supremacy, which couldn't be further from the truth. And by the way, I'm doing an entire series on historical conscious Christians and people who are typically praised for their work in the arena of social justice, but the fact that they're a Christian gets overlooked. So yes, it's true that you can be Christian and Black and woke all at the same time. And it's been historically proven, but it just hasn't been framed that way or highlighted. So I'm definitely going to be doing that. But again, people don't want nothing to do with me simply off the strength of me being a Christian. I can tell them, listen, I'm an attorney. I care about civil justice, I care about civil rights. I care about the youth and educational rights. I taught at a high school. I want to help you. Let's work together. They don't want to hear that. All you got to say is you're a Christian. And then there are also people, right, who think that as a Christian, even as a Christian, your race should be first. Everything should be race first. So the idea behind that is if I'm experiencing injustice, the government or the oppressive system or the police officer, for example, sees me as a Black person before they ever know my name or what my religious affiliation is. So therefore, my race should be first. I have an issue with that because I think my spiritual alignment, my spiritual connection and affiliation is more important than my racial affiliation. There are people who are Black, obviously, who don't think like me. It would be true to the point as well that there are Christians who don't think like me as well. However, the God who created everything seen and unseen, the God who I communicate with on a daily basis, who guides my life, who is supremely concerned for my well-being, who loves me and looks out for me, my relationship with him supersedes anything on this earth, period, point blank. Like, so there's no way for me, this is just me speaking, but there's no way for me to put race first. And that's why even on my t-shirts, you'll see Christian is bold and large and it's up top. It's preeminent. It's in red because it represents the blood of Christ. Really, the two colors, I just threw them on there, but I wanted to make sure I get that red in there. You feel me? So, but that's the most important thing. And then the other two are subservient and smaller and come beneath it because Christianity and my God come first. So if we're talking about unity, what am I supposed to do with that? So there are certain arenas where I understand I may not be able to be as vocal about my faith. I can understand that, but are you expecting me to divorce my thought processes? Are you expecting me to stop using the Bible as my compass when it comes to making decisions that are for the people? I can't do it. And I'm not going to lie to you and pretend like I even want to do it. I don't want to do it. Daniel worked in Babylon, working right up under the king. And they knew exactly who he was and what he stood for and the God that he served. That isn't an accident. It's because he was vocal and he was making sure that everybody knew what his fidelity was. And I'm going to take that example and do the same exact thing. Everybody's going to know who I am and what I stand for. And it's not even about me, but the Bible says that we should be proclaiming his name among the heathen. We should be making his deeds be known and all of these things. We should be basically letting our light shine, letting people know who the God is that we serve. And I'm not going to be ashamed of that. I'm not going to, hide that, especially when it's an activity that I am voluntarily engaging in. I am voluntarily unifying with other people so that we can move the social progress forward. And this is something that I don't have to do. I'm not obligated to do it. So you're going to take me as I am. And I'm going to bring Jesus with me. And if he can't come, baby, I ain't coming. I ain't coming. Don't invite me nowhere if Jesus can't come. That's just me. But what do you guys think? I want to know, what are your thoughts on, for example, I believe it was the Khalif Browder story on Netflix that I was watching where, what's the guy? I think it's Lupe Fiasco was saying that he had been listening to some of Stokely Carmichael's tapes and then he was flagged at an airport and the FBI somehow knew that he was listening to these tapes and stopped him and questioned him because of that. So I was like, okay, let me, I've heard of Stokely Carmichael. I've seen a couple of quotes from him and whatnot, but let me further see what he's got going on. So I went ahead and listened to some of his speeches on YouTube. And one of the things that he said was like, we should try to get all black people to understand the cause and the importance of it and its methods. But if you find somebody who is, for lack of a better term right now, a coon, then you try to get them to agree. But if you don't and you can't succeed in that, you kill them. Now, I don't know if he was being literal, but it sounded real literal to me and everybody was cheering and hooting and hollering. Let me tell you something. What fellowship has light with darkness? I don't want nothing to do with that. I don't want that nowhere near my name. I start listening to Buddy. I cut that off. Listen, I don't know if he said anything after the fact to retract that statement or recant. I don't know. But I do know I heard what he said in his own voice, and I went with that. And that's not something that I want to align myself with. And again, these are things that we have to consider when we're talking about unifying with people. Unity sounds really good. It sounds like a great concept. It's very idealistic, but is it practical when it comes to issues of spiritual concern? Again, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. So again, I asked you before, what would the goals be? Should we just strictly be seeking to help people physically? But as Christians, Bible-believing Christians know that this is more than just physical. It's going to take more than laws to bring an end to injustice. And frankly, I believe that injustice will always be here, but that does not mean that we shouldn't fight against it. I don't believe that means that we should just acquiesce to it, but we have to acknowledge that what needs to be changed is not the penal system itself, but the hearts of men. Right? And the only remedy for that is Jesus Christ, and some people will cringe at the sound of that. Some people will look at me crazy for saying that. That's okay. Go ahead, look at me crazy. I can't say that I don't care. Actually, I can say I don't care. I don't care because it's the truth. It's the truth. And so what do you guys think about that? Like, what do you think about unifying with people who don't hold the same spiritual beliefs as you? How are you aligning yourself on the same spiritual, maybe secular level as somebody else who is on a completely different arena, a different playing field? Their mindset is on a different page. How do you do that? And should you do that? Definitely comment and let me know what you guys think, and we can have this can be an ongoing discussion. As you guys know, Facebook is the place where I'm most heavily engaged on social media. You can find me there, facebook.com/NeferNittyESQ. Should be under this video. You can comment under this video and I'll talk to you. I don't have a problem. If I have time, I'll discuss the issues with you. But I want to hear from Christians and non-Christians alike. Because like I said, there are non-Christians who don't want nothing to do with us. They don't want nothing to do with Jesus. And because you represent Jesus, you can get out my face. And that's cool. That's how you feel. I ain't pressed about it. Go on about your business. I can do my own thing. You know what I'm saying? Please subscribe to this video, like, comment, share, all that. I'm also now on Patreon. I'm starting a new podcast. This is a new podcast, Christian Black Woke. So if you're not listening to this on there, please make sure you find me on all the platforms and subscribe and comment and rate me there. I also have a Patreon in case you want to support what I got going on here. Patreon.com/NeferNitty. And then again, there's the NeferNitty website that I just launched about a week ago, which is a real resource for Black Christians. It basically helps you be able to answer questions as it relates to your faith, questions about the origins of Christianity, whether it is compatible with African indigenous religions, and some biblical archaeology on there as well. I also have another project, kind of related but unrelated, called the Peace Project, which basically seeks to help Christians understand how to think, their mindset. So that's another discussion for another day. And it's going to also be a separate podcast, the Perfect Peace Podcast. But for now, just want you guys to know that these resources are there and I'm updating them frequently. And like I said, look out for the profiles in Conscious Christianity, which will be coming soon as well. So stay Christian, stay Black, stay woke.